Howdy folks, it's OC from Digital Adventures. Got another great project for you today. This one is called Ant Racer. Essentially what we have is two different sprites. We have a red ant and a green ant, as well as a finish line. So let me click on full screen and show you how this works. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the green flag. We're going to use our arrow key, and this is going to move us around the course. We're keeping time as we do this. This is actually a two-player game, so what you can do is you can have two different characters going at the same time. The goal is to get around the screen or the track as fast as you can. If you go off screen onto the yellow, it resets you to the beginning. So the idea is to get around here. This is just a very simple track, a background. We're going to use some boundary conditions. It's going to have the background and the color. So let me stop this. Let me go ahead and build this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the red ant. So let's clear out this existing code and we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to get ourselves a when green flag clicked. So we're going to start off with events. And we're going to get ourselves a when green flag clicked. And what we want to do with that when green flag clicked is that we're going to go to motion. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to have our ant point in direction 90 degrees. This is going to make sure that it's facing to the right when we get started. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to have this go to a certain position. So what we want to do is we want to have this go to an XY position. That's going to be at the start of the track. And so what it's going to be for ours is 14 and 85. Now we're going to create the character controls. So what we're going to do is we're going to get 3 when green flag clicked. So 1, 2, 3. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a forever loop, 3 forever loops. So 1 forever loop, another forever loop, another forever loop. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a couple of conditional statements nested inside of here. So we're going to have one conditional statement, we're going to have another conditional statement, and a third. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a sensing. So we want to know when a certain key space is pressed. So we're going to get 1, we're going to get the second, and we're going to get the third. And now because this is a two-player game, what we're going to do is we're going to use the arrow keys as well as the keyboard keys. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to a W. So we're going to go down and do W. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have this be a move of 3 steps. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to get ourselves the D key. So we're going to look for D in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to have that turn clockwise. So we're going to have this turn by 3 degrees. So as you see, our racers are pretty small. And so what we want to do is we want to be proportional. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the A key. And we're going to have this turn counterclockwise. And this is also going to be 3 degrees. And so this is going to allow us to advance and turn left and right. Next thing that we want to do is we're going to create a boundary condition. And so this boundary condition is going to say what's going to happen when we go out of bounds. So we're going to get ourselves another when green flag click from events. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a pointing direction. So this is basically going to reset ourselves. And then we're going to get ourselves that go to XY. We're going to have this be at 14 and 85. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a forever loop. And what we're going to do is we're going to nest an if-then conditional statement inside of here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sense whether or not we're touching a certain color. And so we're going to click on the existing color. We're going to get that paint dropper tool. And once it highlights the yellow, we're going to click on that. We're going to lock it in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to replicate that. And we're going to say point in direction 90 degrees. And then we're going to have another go to XY. And we're going to change that to 14 and 85. You also notice that we have a time. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our time. So we're going to create a new variable. We're going to call this red time. Let's uncheck these previous ones. And we're also going to make it a green time variable. This is going to be for our second racer. And what we're going to do is we're going to have red time on the left and green time on the right. And so what we're going to want to do when we first get going is we're going to want to set up our red time to be equal to 0. And then the final thing that we're going to do is we're going to create the final boundary condition, which is what happens when we get to the endpoint. So we're going to do when green flag clicked. And then what we're going to do is in control, we're going to get ourselves a repeat until block. And inside of that repeat until block, what we're going to do is we're going to want to know whether or not we're touching the finish line. And so we're going to put this here. And when we're touching the finish line, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to change our time by 1/10 of a second. So we're going to change that red time by 1/10 of a second, and then we're going to have it wait by 1/10 of a second. So we're going to go back into control, and we're going to have it wait by 1/10 of a second. And what this is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to keep the time until the game ends. So let's go over to the green ant, and let's program that. It's going to be very similar. So let's drop this old code out of here. And then let's get started fresh. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get ourselves a when green flag clicked from events. And what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a motion block. We want this also to point in direction of 90 degrees. And then we want this to have a go to XY. We're going to start this off at 9 and 99. And your coordinates might be a little different depending on how you set up the course. It's just important for you to see what the coordinates are at for what you start with. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back, and now we're going to create our character controls. So we're going to get 3 when green flag clicked. These are going to be based on the arrow keys this time. So we're going to go and get ourselves 3 forever loops. And then inside these forever loops, what we're going to do is we're going to nest if-then conditional statements. And these if-then conditional statements are going to be based on the arrow keys. And so what we're going to do is we're going to want to sense whether or not we're touching a certain key. So we're going to say key space pressed, another key space pressed, another key space press. Separate these so you can see them. First thing that we're going to start off with is we're going to do the up arrow. This is going to basically be our forward motion. So we're going to get this to be a move 3 steps. And once again, because this is a 2-player game, what we need to do is we have to use the WASD for one, and then we have to use the up, right, and down for the other. So then we're going to do the left arrow. And what the left arrow is going to be based on is we're going to have this turn counterclockwise by 3 degrees. And then we're going to get ourselves a turn clockwise by 3 degrees. And we're going to change this to the right arrow. So now we have all of our character controls for the green ant. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to create the boundary condition for if it goes off course. So let's go into events. Let's get ourselves a when green flag clicked. And then let's go ahead and we're going to start this off as a pointing direction. You can actually do this either up top like we did it here, or you can connect it at the other spot here. It just really depends on the preference if you want to make your code less messy. So we can do a 999. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves a forever loop. And inside that forever loop, what we're going to do is we're going to put an if-then conditional statement. And then what we want to do once again is we want to sense for a certain color. So we're going to click on this here. We're going to click on that paint dropper. We're going to highlight yellow. And once we have yellow locked in, what we're going to do is we're going to reset that to that starting point. So we're going to grab a point in direction. We're going to have a go to XY. We're going to have this to be at 9 and 99. And then the next thing that we're going to want to do is we want to initialize that variable. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our green time to start off at 0. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to do the boundary condition for if it hits the finish line. So we're going to grab ourselves another when green flag clicked. As before, we're going to go into control and get ourselves a repeat until block. And the thing that we want to know is whether or not we're touching that finish line. And when we're touching the finish line, what we're going to want to do is whenever we're not doing that, we're going to increment our time. And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to get ourselves a change that green time by 1/10 of a second. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to have our control block, and we're going to have this wait 1/10 of a second. And so what that's going to allow us to do is to increment our time. And then the final block is a finish line, but we don't need to do anything for that. This is maybe helpful if you want to have something to advance to a new background. You can broadcast that you advance, but let's just go ahead and make sure that this works as expected. So let's click on the full screen. Let's click on the green flag. You see that both of our racers reset. We see that our time is incrementing. So what we're going to do is we go straight and we try to turn. I'm going to do these at the same time. And what we see is that, let's check out boundary condition on that yellow. Yep, we reset there. Let's check it there. Yep, we reset it there. And so the idea is to get to the finish line as soon as possible. So this is a great project that teaches us about variables. We learn about different boundary conditions. We learn about character controls. Really hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope to see you back for the next one. Thank you so much.